One man has been travelling through the worst of the fire grounds all through the week and in turn has been reporting into government and emergency authorities to meet the needs of those who are desperate and to try and link up the agency with those who are offering their generosity. That man is former Major General Senator Jim Molan, who got a little angry today over a Labor accusation that his trip through New South Wales was just a political tour. He joins me now from our Canberra studio. G'day there, Jim.
G'day, Chris. I did get a bit emotional today, but you got to hand it to it. We don't want to politicise this, as everyone tells us not to politicise it, then they politicise it.
Yeah, it's a moral, I guess, because the opposition are trying to tear Scott Morrison to bits, and if you've got ministers or senators who are close to Scott Morrison, you're going to cop it. Firstly, let me play for you what Anthony Albanese had to say at this press conference today, basically about government MPs travelling through the fire grounds.
I have been disturbed that Stuart, the minister who's responsible for rolling out much of that support through government services, attended the area covered by Mike Kelly and Eden Monaro and Fiona Phillips in Gilmore, who happened to be Labor members, but took a Liberal Party senator, newly elected, newly reappointed, Jim Molan, rather than conducted himself in an appropriate way.
Your response, Jim?
Anthony is wrong on just about every point. I wasn't taken anywhere. I live in that electorate. I've been down there and moving through that electorate since Christmas Eve. I've also been fighting fires in those electorates. Stu Robert came down because he is providing an enormous service. This is not a political stunt. $50 million have been paid out to these in these fires to something like 48,000 people. And so, and the cut that you just showed us there, Chris, was preceded by a demand that what we're doing down there not be politicised, and he immediately politicised it. Richard Marles did exactly the same thing the day before. We don't need that. Let's go into these fires on a true venture to assist the people, and that's certainly what I've been doing now for 14 days straight.
I reckon you could have argued against Albo even further, because not only are you from that area, Queanbeyan, and on the edge of the fires, you're also a New South Wales senator, so this is your territory, the entire state. And more than that, as a former Major General, you're a logistical military expert in times of crisis. And I've even been in touch with you to try and, get the left hand to talk to the right hand about something of need in that part of the fire grounds, and you've been helpful. I probably think you've done that about 30 times in the last week.
And thank you for saying that, Chris, for the simple reason that this has been recognised. Defence have given me an Army captain to travel with me and a Defence Public Affairs person, not to publicise the fact that I'm travelling, but to publicise the good things that we're doing and that the Australian Defence Force are doing. But what I've been doing down there on each occasion, and we had an example of this today, was that where there are problems in friction points in a very, very complex situation, on occasions, not many occasions, you said about 30, that might be about right, on occasions someone on the ground can make the right phone calls to the right people, particularly to the military commanders who are down there, but also to the local evacuation operation centres or emergency operation centres, fire control centres, and just suggest things in a way which makes things work. And this is the way the military's worked for 1,000 years. Montgomery used to have people out on the ground who could see in crisis situations often what was not coming back up through the chain of command. So I've been reporting into our own Prime Minister's office, and some of the tremendous things that the government has done, such as the $75,000 grant assistance to farmers, has been done because the PM has been talking directly to farmers. I've been talking directly to farmers, and our system has reacted. And we have tailored it on the advice of farmers, of people who lost their house or didn't lose their house or was insured or wasn't insured or lost all their fencing. And we've come up with a package in that one area, plus many others, in that one area which, because I'm travelling around, because the Prime Minister listens and because we're reactive, that is to the benefit of farmers.
Because unlike the local members in that area, they're not in government, they don't have the ear of the Prime Minister instantly. And I think Anthony Albanese has shot the wrong duck here, and he hasn't even wounded him. And on top of that, he's got himself all mixed up, and he should have done his due diligence, and he did not. Just tell me a little bit about the fire grounds. What's the mood like amongst those who've, well, probably in the last couple of days have seen a bit of rain? That would have lifted spirits, Jim?
Yeah. Oh, it certainly has. And it's given everyone a sense of the fact that there is a future. As I drove up today from Nowra through some of the worst hit areas, I could actually see incredible green grass about that big pushing its way through the black. Some trees that I saw as I drove up yesterday from Bateman's Bay up to Nowra, some trees by the side of the road were sprouting.
Already.
Now, the resilience of the bush, I think, is matched by the resilience of our people. And Chris, today we buried a firefighter. We've buried two others, and we have a lot of people who are very badly hurt and hurting down all through all fire areas. But I don't think it's too early, having acknowledged that and knowing that the government is working very hard, state and federal and local government, to assist those people. It's not too hard to recognise, it's not too soon to recognise how well we have done in this. We've lost 2,200 houses, and I understand that because I lost a house many, many years ago in a bushfire. 800 have been destroyed, but 25,000 houses have been saved. California lost 12,000 houses in wildfires last year. We learnt, and I give credit to the New South Wales RFS, to Shane Fitzsimmons, and I'm a member of the ACT RFS, and we've been backing them up and protecting our own area. New South Wales learnt the lessons very, very well from the 2009, I think it was called Black Saturday Royal Commission, and I gave evidence to that on crisis management. They learnt the lesson, which was to get the people out of the way of the fires. And that happened on the south coast to an incredible degree of efficiency. Chris, I reckon we have done fabulously well in the first responders area, and I hope that the government now, and I'm seeing it, I hope that the government can do as well as the first responders did now as the rebuilding rolls out, and the key role of the Australian Defence Force in that.
Are you getting the same kind of feedback from landholders, though, as I've been getting for the past 3 weeks? Did you get that feedback about the fact that they could see this coming because of the lack of hazard reduction, the huge fuel loads that we're building in the forests?
Oh, without doubt. So many people have said this to me, it's not funny. The Greens and the local councils don't talk to me, but I'm getting it from the people on the land, the people who have suffered, and I am getting that very, very strongly. But I would advocate, and I hear other people coming up and say we've got to have this organisation to fight fires in the future or that organisation. This is far too soon to be coming up with answers, but it's legitimate to say when we have an inquiry or a Royal Commission, hazard reduction must be in the mix. The kind of firefighting that we need to use in the future must be in the mix. So, yes, I have heard that, and I've heard it time and time again, Chris.
I got some photos of you this afternoon. We've shown a couple already during this interview, but one that really took me was the one at Nerriga, surrounded by burnt landscape, but Ned Kelly still stands, and I guess it's symbolic of the fact that our firefighters still stood too.
Oh, yes, and the one deployment that I did with the ACT RFS was up to around Nerriga pub, in front of the pub, and down around some of the areas. Not the worst part of that. There was some appalling, violent firefighting that my deployment was nothing like it. But some of our people from our shed have been in the worst of it. And I spoke to Tony Abbott during the week, and he was in some very, very demanding fires around Milton. But you're right, Nerriga and the Nerriga pub is an extraordinary little institution, and it's great that we were able to save a lot of the properties in the areas. We were pulled from pillar to post up there as the fires sprang back into life, and someone would make a 000 call, and we'd have to move from where we were to another area. So yeah, the spirit is still there, the gratitude is there.
Good.
And it goes to our society, Chris. We're a great society.
Let me bet that on the fire grounds, there's a lot less obvious criticism of the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, than there would be from the media in capital cities.
Oh, I think that is very, very true. And some of the people that I have seen with my own eyes who criticise the Prime Minister are regarded by their comrades as people who didn't involve themselves in the community, etc. But we're here to be criticised, and nothing we've done so far has been perfect. Some of it has been fabulously well done, and from what I can see, the way we're going at the moment, we can achieve a tremendous amount because we have learnt. I haven't heard a firefighter on the fire ground criticise the Prime Minister, because for the simple reason that they understand, put the bloody fires out first, then think of the big issues. Yeah. Now, you know, what struck me in relation to the deployment of the ADF, Chris, even as much as the great work they're doing down there in a dozen different areas, is that this is a tool that comes from the federal government to assist the states. But the confidence, and I hadn't thought of this at all, the confidence that the people had in those uniforms being amongst them was as great as the firefighters that stood between them and the flames. So, mate, it was an amazing experience. I've done this overseas. I've done it in wartime, in peacetime, in tsunamis or famines and floods. Our soldiers, the regular soldiers, 2,000 of them, and the reserve soldiers, 3,000, who are doing it amongst their own community, to them it's critical, and to the community it's critical. Yeah,
isn't that an amazing thought, the fact that you have been able to instil confidence in local communities who have been bashed to smithereens, and, you know, their whole community's burnt beyond recognition, and yet the idea that a uniform or a number of uniforms in your local town come in to help. Maybe they're not doing the heavy load, but maybe they're just there to direct and supervise, but the fact that they are there, it says something for the respect Australians have for the uniform, Jim.
It certainly does. And the state government mechanisms that were deployed within a day or so of the fires going, I was there, I watched them come in, and the formation of the emergency operations centres. I mean, almost every one of the fire control centres have been fighting fires for weeks prior to the big ones. But the Anglicare, the Salvos, Services Australia, the people who assist people who come in and say, I've lost everything, I've got nothing, can you help me? They can give them a place to sleep, a place to look after their kids, they can give them a shoulder to cry on, and they can put $1,000 into their bank and $800 for each kid, so that at least they can go out and start purchasing the things they need tomorrow. And that's the first response. That's not the big response that is now coming through. They're the first responders, that first bit of money.
Yeah, it's interesting. People have got to be a little bit patient here, because the process of assessing the fire ground, insurance companies turning up and working out what can be recovered, what can be rebuilt, the permission that it takes from local council to say, yes, you've got your plans, so we'll approve this in 6 months' time, and then having people on there to rebuild maybe something better than what you had before, so it's more fire retardant. It is a long process, and some of these fire grounds take 3 and 4 years before new homes are built again, and we've got to be patient, don't we?
We do have to be patient, and that's asking a lot of people whose life has been shattered by these fires. But after the Tathra fires, we found that the biggest restriction to rebuilding was the presence of asbestos.
Yeah.
Many houses, if the assessment team goes through and says, no, there's asbestos in this, you've got to bring in specialist people to clean it up first before you bring in the tradies to build the houses.
Yep.
So, you know, it takes many months and probably longer.
Well done, and thank you so much for your time. All the very best, Jim. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you.
OK, retired Major General Senator Jim Molan. Anthony Albanese has picked on the wrong person doing the right job.